Hello, how are you? My name is Yuchen. Welcome to another video of printed matter. This series of programming really started as an experiment in response to the confinement of quarantine and to carry on with printed matter's mission online. And yet, without the closure to the pandemic, our bodies, our hearts are now propelled by another wave of history. I've been joining the protests on the street in Brooklyn and in Manhattan, and I'm grateful for the education that I got out there. It's unfiltered and necessary. And I understand that this is only a beginning for a lifelong process of learning and unlearning. When I'm not on the street, I'm confronted with this disheartening contrast between how slow, how subtle art changes the world and this overwhelming sense of urgency. But I do believe that we must all participate to make change from all folds of a society. So here I am. And I want to use this window, this fragment of time, to share with you several artist books related to protest or to social movement in general. The first one. To be hybrid anticipates the future. This is America, the nation of all nationalities. The racial and cultural intermixture is the antithesis of all the tenets of the Axis powers. For us, to fall into the fascist line of race bigotry is to defeat our unique personality and strengths. I Become a Nisei is a reproduction of a 12 pages article written by Isamu Noguchi. And it was published by Noguchi Museum in January 2017, which marked the 75th anniversary of the Executive Order 1966, a wartime directive that evicted and detained 112,000 men, women, and children with Japanese heritage lived on the west coast of United States. Noguchi, primarily known as a sculptor, was born to a Japanese father and American mother. He lived and worked in many places of many continents. To me, both his life experience and his artistic language are fundamentally internationalist. But here's how he became a Nisei. When people ask me why I, a Eurasian sculptor from New York, have come so far into the Arizona desert to be locked up with the evacuated Japanese from the West Coast, I sometimes wonder myself. I reply that because of my peculiar background, I felt this world very keenly and wished to serve the cause of democracy in the best way that seemed open to me. At other times, I say that I felt sympathy for the plight of the American-born Japanese, the Nisei, or else that relocation offered a presage of inevitable social change in which I wished to take part. And he continued to write about the weather, the food, the labor of the camp, the interaction among Issei, Nisei, and white administrators, as well as some changes, practical ones, that Noguchi tried to initiate from within the camp. I actually found a PDF of the whole scene, and I will link to this video on Printed Matter's YouTube channel. The second book I want to show you is titled First Aide to Face Adversity by Kuwa Jasiri. a street medic, a herbalist, among many other talents, and it's published under this project, Authentic Creation Publishing. It is a DIY zine, great for self-care, but also very useful for community response, covering information like scene safety, how to avoid burnout, the importance to obtain consent before healing someone, simple wound care, what to do when exposed to tear gas or pepper spray, and a bag of seed with which you can grow your own butternut squash. It's also in Spanish. And animals, plants, and mushrooms, craft, culinary, and medical uses. A list. Kuwa Jasiri made a video for us. You can find it on Printed Matter's YouTube channel. I really enjoyed watching it. To me, this generosity, this passion, is really the core of self-publishing and of zine, especially in its origin in counterculture movement. Against the commodification of information towards a democratic flow of knowledge and the decolonization of education. This one we have at Printed Matter. The third book I want to show you is titled Emmanuel, How to Bribe a Cop in Colombia. The artist is a dear friend of mine, Shih, and this project was done during a residency he did at 4-18, a nonprofit organization in Bogota, Colombia. So it starts with tutorials. One, how to identify a cop through their vehicles and uniforms. Two, the possible reasons to be pulled over, and the minimum and maximum suggested amount of bribery, and the actual fine. Three, how do I know the cop is asking for a bribe? For example, takes forever to write a ticket, which should be done in 2 minutes, or using suggestive language such as collaborate, help each other, 1,000 ways to fix a problem. 4, negotiation, some scripted conversations. 5, how to hand money to a police. There are 3 hand gestures illustrated. And the appendix includes glossary, currency, and documents. And the second half of the book are some actual stories related to bribe that Ayo collected from living in a city in Bogota. I think I have seen quite a lot of brilliant artist books that's made in disguise, meaning that on the surface they adopt the format or the tone of certain traditional publication, certain genre, be that menu or a recipe or romance novel or self-help. But once you start reading, you find it slides off or completely subverts the expected genre. In this case, I think it is the factuality of all this information and how well they are organized together makes the project more absurd and powerful in that way. This is how Ayo put it. When editing this book, I often felt at home, bureaucracy everywhere in daily life, with enormous uncertain areas ruled by men. Also, I was often entertained by people's creativity, in which they extend the possibilities of language by responding to specific contexts. We've all been witness while our parents use vague terms to negotiate in their driver's seat. Whether we like it or not, those experiences violently merged into our body and became part of our memory. I hope this book will be a practical guide for tourists, or maybe a gift for your friend who just received driver's license. Or perhaps one day, it will simply be a decoration on your bookshelf, some art done by some artist, with no need to be opened again. This one we also have at Printed Matter. The fourth book I want to show you is the most recent one. It's titled Love in a Time of Revolution. It's not for sale. I got it at Booked Hong Kong Art Book Fair at Tycoon Contemporary a couple months ago. It's published by Soft D Press, while the materials were gathered from the internet. It is a collection of love stories set against the backdrop of the prolonged protest in Hong Kong, started around this time last year. The foreword is titled, "Love is never merely a harbor from cruel reality, because cruelty is everywhere, it permeates everything. No relationship or individual could be independent from the society, from the framework of politics, economics, and gender." Among all these stories, my favorite one is titled "The Frontline Brother and the Backup Brother Walking Hand in Hand." And here's how it ended. Before he met Ball, Long had been single for over 2 years. He recalled his previous relationship always being an emotional interaction. Dating was going out to have fun. Politics were not fun to talk about, so they were not talked about. I always used to feel compromise was required for two people to be together. If you are not getting along, avoid the heavy stuff to make things easier, says Long. After the anti-extradition bill protest, Long realized there's no longer room for compromise in his principle of being with someone. What most attracted me to Ball was how he cared about others. Someone once said, "Revolution is for a more beautiful love." Long feels that in order to make love beautiful, he must move forward in a better direction with the man he loves. In that direction, there's no compromise and no avoiding the heavy stuff to make things easier. And I also want to point out that this binding technique 3-hole pamphlet is one that we introduced in the tutorial series. The fifth book I want to show you today, I have to be honest that I haven't finished reading yet. But this piece right here, that the whole book is dedicated to, is too important to me, and I had to own this book. So, David Hammons' Bliz-aard Ball by Elena Filipovic, published by Afterall Books in London. So, this is the piece. One wintry day in 1983, David Hammons paddled snowballs of various sizes. He laid them out in graduated rows and spent the day as an obliging salesman. Note that the action was unannounced. It wasn't the artist doing a performance. It was a man selling snowballs. I can show you some pictures. You might be able to recognize that this is Chinatown in Manhattan. And you can see there are people next to him selling fruits or clothes. Most people seem curious, some amused. This is him offering a free sample to a little baby. I think I came across this piece many years ago in the best possible way. That was as a rumor. A friend just casually told me that there was once an artist who sold snowballs, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since, about how romantic, how simplistic, and yet how powerful this action is, disguised under the innocence of a childlike mimic game, but it really pierces through the material lust of the art world and beyond. But when I look at these pictures again recently for this video, I see other layers. For example, the relationship between a black body to economy, or its relationship to the street of New York City in 1980s. As Elena wrote in this chapter, like dirt to a snowball, where she also quoted David Hammons, art is a lily-white profession, and to be a fly in the sugar ball is very dangerous. I wonder if this is the reason why that his works are so rarely situated in white cubes. So many actions went undocumented. He almost managed to escape every interview and media appearance. He even got a lawyer to make sure this gallery won't be able to represent him. I wonder if this deliberate and elaborate invisibility, a protest against the larger invisibility of blackness in the art world and beyond. This one we also have at Printing Matter. The last book I want to show you today is Courage book by Bread and Puppet. If you're not familiar with Bread and Puppet, it's a legendary puppet theater and publisher founded by Peter Schumann in 1963. This name, Bread and Puppet, came from the belief that art is as essential as food, and they kind of function similarly. We take them into our system. When I started working at Printing Matter, I cataloged over 600 publications by Bread and Puppet, and I bought many of them myself. This was one of those. I'll show you page to page. Naked courage, fighting courage, courage to speak, to see, to dig through the dirt, to plant what is missing. Courage to stick out your tongue, to rethink, to give up, to destroy. Courage to decide, to change, to fly. That's all I want to show you today. This video has been really difficult to produce. A lot of rewriting and refilming happened as my understanding of protest and of this protest keeps being updated and enriched. I still feel inadequate deeply in many ways, but I also want to give from where I am. I heard on the radio the other day a poet said that journalism captures a moment and poetry enshrines the moment. I did not know that word before, so I looked it up and I kept it in my notebook. It is my hope and I believe that books can do the same to enshrine a moment. If other than bringing your presence, your voice to the street, other than sharing information on social media platforms, which are both extremely important at this point, but other than those, if you want one more option to express yourself, we do have a series of bookmaking tutorials available on Printed Matter's YouTube channel and Printed Matter St. Mark's Instagram TV. I produced them for you to use. Please feel free to use them. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care.